Given an extensive form game with all the things we've discussed in a previous video, so with a set of players, a tree G, a partition of the vertex sets for I belonging to N, a set of outcomes, and a utility function U that maps leaves of the tree to those outcomes. An information set, VI for player I, is a partition of big VI, okay? So in other words, we take these and we cut them up. And what these information sets have is that players at an information set is unable to distinguish from the vertices within them, okay? And so that has two real implications. The first being that every info set contains vertices for a single player. Okay, that's somewhat immediate because of the fact that they're already a partition of the vertex sets, and the other one is that all vertices in an info set, put info so it doesn't look like infinity, have same number of successors, and all of those edges must have the same action labels with same action labels. What we're going to do now is a couple of examples to illustrate what all this means, but really what we're saying is that information sets for our players are just collections of nodes at which those players don't know the difference. So what we're going to do now is for these games here on the right, write down the information sets for both players. So in this particular game, in game one, we have that the information sets of Alice, in other words, the vertices that belong to Alice, just contain the one partition, which contains the vertex A. And the vertices of Bob contain B1 and B2. In other words, if you're at B1, you know you're at B1. You know that Alice has picked A. And if you're at B2, you know that you're at B2. You know that Alex has picked Comedy. And now if we take a look at the second example, where we've denoted the game to have an information set that contains B1 and B2, this means that Bob doesn't know the difference. And so we'll write down that the vertices of Alice just contain A, and the vertices of Bob now contain a single information set, B1 and B2. In other words, if you're at B1, you do not know if you're at B1. Sorry, if you're at B2, you do not know if you're at B1 or B2. You have as much information at both of them. You do not know if Alice has chosen comedy or sport. So let's keep going with this next slightly larger tree, and here we have that the vertices of Alice are the set that contains A1 and the set that contains A2. Because Alice knows if Alice is here or here. And likewise, the vertices for Bob are B1 and B2. Bob here has two information sets. Bob knows if Alice has chosen X or Y. It's two last trees to work our way through, two last examples. And in this first one, we have that the vertices of Alice are equal to, as before, A1 and A2. And the vertices of Bob, however, are now B1 and B2. Bob does not know the difference between B1 and B2. And now if we look at this final one, this one's slightly more tricky and more subtle, because this is one of the final points that were raised. And essentially, this tree has incoherent information sets. Because if we're here, it's okay to assume that Bob doesn't know whether or not Alice has picked X or Y, but Bob must choose between A and B. Whereas if we're here, once again, it's okay to assume that Bob hasn't got enough information about X and Y, doesn't know whether or not Alice has chosen X or Y. But now Bob must choose between C or D. So simply through the actions available to Bob, Bob knows if Bob is at B1 or at B2. And so this game is essentially inconsistent, doesn't make much sense, and this information set should not really be there.